Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be sharing with you my pattern review of the Simplicity S9639. So this is a wrap dress pattern that I have been sewing throughout the summer, and I'm so excited to share with you my thoughts and the results of this pattern. So if you are new to the channel and you haven't had a chance to watch my wrap dress series, or if you are someone who frequent the channel and you just have not had a chance to watch my wrap dress series, I'll put a link in the description box below to a collection of videos that I have compiled so that you can actually see all these different pattern reviews of different wrap dresses that I have made since last year. So I am going to include this into that playlist in the series. And so if you want to rewatch that, you can always click on the playlist. So I will include the playlist in the description box below, and you can see all the beautiful wrap dresses that I have made since I think I started around November of last year. So anyway, I am going to go ahead and get into today's video, and I'm going to give you my pattern review of this. I'm going to do something a little bit different today. I have been receiving some requests of seeing like the inside of my garment. And since I have been doing like my what I've been sewing videos, I've been receiving some feedback on individuals saying how they like to see the inside of the garments and see kind of like the work. So I will give you different views, including videos, pictures, and I will switch the camera view after I finish doing my generic pattern review. And then I will show you by going to the table what the inside looks like and talk about modifications, adjustments, and things like that that I have made. And I'll also put it on my dress form so you can see how it hangs on my dress form, because when I get to that part of the video, I'll explain why. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the video, and I want to start by talking about the features of the pattern and how many pattern pieces we have for this pattern. So the Simplicity S9639 come in 4 different views. You have A, B, and C, and actually it's just 3 views. I'm sorry. So it's A, B, and C. So for view A, you have this beautiful handkerchief skirt that has a flutter sleeve, a forward shoulder. You have elastic in the waistband, and you also have ties on the side as your closure. You're going to be sewing a tab on the front of one of your wrap portions. I think it's the left portion. You're going to be sewing a tab, and on that tab you will be sewing a button hole on that, and then on the inside of the garment you'll place a button on the right side inseam, and so that button on the right side of the inseam, and you use the tab to kind of close it off. I did something a little bit different, and when we get to all of the adjustments and modifications that I have made, I'll make sure that I include that into the pattern review and share with you what I did that was a little bit different. For view B, you also have another handkerchief style. The only difference with view B is that you have a long sleeve instead of a flutter sleeve, and you will be sewing like a continuous lap on the edge of the lower sleeve, and you will be placing a cuff on the sleeve as well. The cuff does call for buttons and buttonholes, and so keep that in mind. You do also have ruffles that you're going to be attaching to various parts of the skirt. So you have the lower skirt that you can put a ruffle on, and then also the mid skirt section, you can put a ruffle on that as well. And then view C, which is a version that I have done. I did a variation of view C. So view C also shows a long sleeve with the cuff, as well as the ruffle on the lower edge of the skirt, but you don't have like a long skirt with the handkerchief hem and ruffles on the skirt. You just have the ruffle on the lower part of the skirt. So initially I wanted to do view C with the long sleeves and also the ruffle around the skirt, But then I realized that for the ruffle alone, it calls for you to place that ruffle pattern on fold 5 times. So you have to have quite a bit of fabric if you want to do this variation. So I was not able to put the ruffle on the lower edge of my skirt, but I had enough fabric that I can actually lengthen my skirt. And so I did lengthen my skirt. But again, I'll talk more about that in the modification portion of the video. So this pattern calls for fabrics like chambray, rayon linen, rayon challis, even silky type fabrics. But what I found interesting is that it calls for also ITY and knit fabrics. And that to me is like a big difference, like when you're sewing it with a knitted fabric versus a non-scratch fabric, especially with like a wrap dress or something like that. There's going to be a difference between how you can actually fit the garment, because the design ease will change. Now it does call for I think it has about anywhere from 3 to 5 inches of design ease that's included into the pattern. And so please keep that in mind, that they are calling for non-stretch woven fabrics as well as stretch fabrics. And so you want to make sure that you pay particular attention to that. If you decide to do a knit fabric, I would definitely encourage you to make a mock-up. So let me go ahead and tell you all of the details in terms of like what I did to my garment before I actually take the garment off and go over to the table. So in terms of modifications, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I didn't have enough fabric to do the ruffle at the lower edge of my skirt, that's what I really wanted to do. I decided to lengthen my skirt. So I lengthened my skirt by 6.5 inches. And I didn't use the lengthen and shorten line for this because at the lower edge, like I said, you have a handkerchief option. And so I did not use that. Instead, I actually lengthened my skirt from the point of view C. So view C is quite short without the ruffle. It is quite almost like thigh high. So you want to pay particular attention to that as well. If you're someone who don't like thigh high garments, you want to make sure that you go into the project measuring your skirt pattern piece if you decide not to use the ruffle, because it will be quite short. So I did lengthen mine by 6.5 inches, and that's why I was able to achieve the below knee length skirt that you see on my dress here. The other adjustment that I made was to the neckline. I increased the neckline by about 3/8 to, I believe, a 1/2 inch in width, so that way it can come over a little bit more. As you can see, my cleavage do not show. I think even without the adjustment, it may not have shown very much. I do have snaps, so that's the other modification that I made. So I did place 2 snaps on the bust, the fullest part of my bust, so that the garment does not gape open. And that's just the nature of any wrap. It's going to be very, very hard for you to achieve a wrap style without actually having some type of gaping or, deeper neckline or something like that. That's just the nature. I have come to find that that's just the nature of a wrap. And so it's not taking anything away from the pattern. I do feel like it has a pretty much of a modest neckline, but if you want it to be a little bit higher, if you have a bigger cup, I am working with a CD cup, and my bra cup size is a 36D or a 38C. So just keep that in mind, that I am working with a D cup, and so it may be different for someone who is working with a smaller cup size, but nonetheless, I feel like you won't need to increase your neckline too much. If you're working with a D cup or so, you may not need to increase your neckline by too much. Like I said, put snaps on, and I do that with any wrap dress now, just simply because I have found even if I nail the wrap and it covers completely, I can still have like some spillage if I bend over. And so I just always include snaps. So that's another modification that I have done. The other modification that I did was to my sleeve. You'll notice that I have a 3/4 length sleeve and I put elastic in the lower edge of my sleeve. I didn't really want to have a long sleeve with a cuff for this style, and I didn't quite want a flutter sleeve either, being as though we are entering into fall and I want to wear this possibly throughout the duration of fall, even after Thanksgiving here in the United States, which is the later end of November. And so I wanted to have a longer sleeve, but not a sleeve with the cuff. So in terms of modifications and adjustments, that's all I did to my garment. You will be surprised that I did not have to do a forward shoulder adjustment. And that was simply because you do have a forward shoulder. And so I decided to just leave it. Mine's go back, my dress shoulder line go back just a little bit. It's not as forward because I have those sloping shoulders, but I'm okay with where it's at. In terms of the sleeve pattern, I did not have to do a bicep adjustment, which is also something that I usually have to do. The sleeve have quite a bit of room for ease, and that's simply because you have gathers on the shoulder head here. So let's go ahead and switch gears, and I'll tell you more about my garment as I am showing you the inside of it and share with you exactly what I did and the process of how I sewed it together. Okay, so let's start with the waistband. So this pattern, I didn't mention all the pattern pieces that you will be sewing with, but depending on what style you go with, you will probably sew anywhere from about 8 to about 15 pattern pieces, depending on which style you go with. Because remember, you have those ruffle patterns, and the ruffle patterns, I think you have about 3 or 4 different ruffle patterns. You have a cuff pattern, a continuous lap. You also have the sleeve pattern. You have the ties, the front bodice, the back bodice, and also the front skirt, the back skirt. So you do have quite a bit of pattern pieces that you are working with. And so this is a pattern that I would say is more towards like the intermediate or average. So it's fairly easy to sew, but it does have quite a bit of pattern pieces here. So I want to go ahead and start with the waistband. Oh, I forgot, you do also have a front and a back facing here. So you do have facings on the inside. So let's start with the midriff here. So for the midriff pattern, you do have a front midriff and a back midriff. The back midriff is the one that is cut on fold, and it's very long. So as you can see here, you have elastic going throughout the midriff here. And so you will be creating channels here. So you see you have 2 different channels here, and you're going to be putting elastic through those channels. On the side of, let's see here. So on this side, this is the right side of the body. You're going to put a tie. So here's the tie on the midriff here before you put your facing on. After you baste your tie in place and everything is ready to go, you'll put your facing on. So your tie is sandwiched in between your midriff and your facing. I hope I explained that right there. And then you'll just go ahead and put another tie. So your second tie is on the left side of the body, and it is also on the midriff, but it is in the inseam instead of on the front of the body like the other tie is. So this is on the inseam on the left side. And I'll put it on my dress form so you can see. Now, what you're supposed to do to close off the inside of the body, so these long ties close off the outside of the dress. to close the inside of the wrap dress, you're supposed to put a tab here on the midriff here. You're supposed to put a tab here, and on that tab is supposed to be a buttonhole, and you're supposed to put a button on the inside here, a button, and then you put the tab and the button together, and that's how it hold it in place. I did not want to do that. I decided to go with ties instead. I feel like they're a little bit more stable, and so I created my own pattern for a tie, just a really long rectangle, and I sewed that together. So I have 2 ties to tie the inside of my skirt instead of the tab and the button closure that they offer. So that's the only difference that I have made with the tie portion of the garment. After sewing the ties and putting them all together, I decided if I were to make this again, I would definitely make this a little longer. It's not as long as it should be. I think it definitely can stand to be a little longer. So just keep that in mind if you decide to do this as well. Just make sure you make your ties long and not do it the way that I did. On the front of the skirt here, what you do on the front of the skirt is it has the pattern have a line on the skirt pattern on the front, and it directs you to fold over your front skirt so that you can have like a self-facing. And so that's what you're going to do for the front of the skirt on both sides, the left and the right, and that's how you're closing that off. And then on the bottom, I just did a scant, I think this is like a 5/8 of an inch, or maybe even smaller than that, hem allowance there. I did something a little bit different because, again, my hem is not the handkerchief option and it doesn't have the ruffle on it. So I just did my own thing and I created a narrow hem on the bottom of my hem. Now let's talk about the midriff again. So my fabric, the fabric that I was working with, this is a Rayon Challis. And in one of my videos, my plans video, somebody had asked me, where did I get this fabric? So I did purchase this fabric from fabric.com, but they have since closed. I have seen this fabric last year on Style Maker Fabric. I don't know if they still have it. If they do, I'll try to hunt it down and put it in the description box below, just in case any of you are interested in it. But it is a gorgeous fabric. It's a black fabric, and on the foreground you have gray and gold and white floral details. Such a gorgeous fabric, and I've had it in my stash for a couple years, and so I'm really excited that I was able to sew with it. So that's where I got the fabric from. But this is a lightweight fabric, and so going back to the midriff again, I will get to this story here one way or another. So the midriff, because I was sewing with a fabric that is so light in weight, I decided to use a featherweight interfacing. So this is the Pellon P44, I believe, P44F or PF44. I'll make sure that I put that in the description box below as well. But this is a very lightweight interfacing, and I stabilized the front and the back waistband for both the inside and the outside. Now, I know you're probably thinking, why would you do that? It's going to cause a lot of bulk. It actually did not, because the interfacing was so light in weight. It just it fused into the fabric really nicely, and it actually felt as if it was nothing on the fabric. That's what I love about the featherweight interfacing when you want to do projects like this, when you want to add a little bit more stability to your garment, especially to fabrics that may shift or move, like Rayon Challis. And so that's one of the reasons why I did that. I did starch the fabric before going into the project, and so that offered a little bit stability as well. But I wanted a little bit more stability, especially for the waistband, because I didn't want it to like shift and move. So I did do that, and as you can see, it just came out so beautifully, so lovely. Love this so much. Now, I want to say real quickly a word about the waistband. Make sure that you choose your fabric wisely. Make sure that you also choose your size wisely, and make sure that you do any necessary adjustments in terms of like lengthening or shortening your waistline, because with the garment like this, you definitely want to pay attention to where your waistline is going to be. I have found that after sewing this, even though I made many mock-ups, I overlooked my waistline and thinking that it would be okay and I didn't need to make any adjustments. And you'll see at the back of my garment, it is a little bit tight around the back of the garment, and that's because it's not on my natural waistline. It's actually on a wider part of my body and not at the part where it needs to be. That's the first mistake I made. The second mistake, I think I needed to grade out. I was more focused on my arms and my bust and making sure that those things fit, and I neglected to account for my waist because I thought that since I'm using elastic, it would not matter. So please, guys, I made the mistake so that you don't have to. So just make sure that you choose your size wisely, do a mock-up. I think in the future, I would go up and grade out to a size 18 for my waist to give myself some more room, so that way it doesn't look so tight around the back of the garment. So I think those two things, having it be on my natural waistline in the back of the garment, as well as giving myself some more or extra room for the waistline, would have made it look a little bit better. And I'm going to share with you what it looks like on my dress form so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. The fabric in the back, or the elastic in the back, kind of stretches out, and it's not really supposed to be like that. Although I can live with it, and I have committed to lose weight so that I can fit it the way that I want. Going into the next project, I will definitely make those changes. And again, I'll put it here so you can see on my dress form what it should look like, and not necessarily what it looks like on my body. So yeah, that was definitely a oopsie on my part. I was really sad about it, but I got over it, and the fabric and the dress looks so good anyway that it is still wearable. I'm just going to try to lose a few inches on my waistline, and that way it can look a little bit better on the back there, on my lower waistline in the back there anyway. So anyway, I really enjoy sewing this. Let me share with you a little bit more of the garment here. So here is the top of the sleeve. So you have gathering on the sleeve head here. As I mentioned before, you have a back neck facing here, and you're sewing that back neck facing to a front facing here. Here are my snaps. So I put snaps on there. I put 2 snaps. So I just used my serger to serge everything. It made it really easy, and it looks pretty clean on the inside here. And that's what she looks like. I think the only thing that would complete this is pockets. So you don't have pockets for this, and I wish I would have thought about it before completing the project. But yeah, pockets. I think pockets would look really great on this dress here. Here is the elastic that I was telling you about here. So I made a really narrow channel, and I put elastic in the lower edge of the sleeve. And that is my garment. So yeah, that's my review of this pattern. Please let me know what you think in the comment section below. I hope you all have a blessed and happy sewing week, and I will talk to y'all in the next video. Bye.